All right, Denny, I'm going to turn over to you, I think, and we'll just let people in as they come.
Okay. Well, let me say that this is an exciting group to be with. It's small at this point, but then almost everything right now in the church is small. But it's a really vital group because we really started this network to support our part-time and bivocational pastors in small churches because, and this is a real quick piece. When I was young, isn't that terrible to have to say that? When I was young and first starting out, there was a lot of support for town and country ministries and those kind of things and part-time models. And we didn't see that anymore. And Dawn and I, a couple of years ago, had a conversation, and here we are. So that's basically the short piece. But I want to say a word of thanks to all those who are coming in with us tonight. It's incredibly important for us as a conference to support the colleagues in ministry that we have that are not elders, not full-time, who may split their time with other jobs, because we're here because of what has been described by some of our colleagues as their feelings of being lost, feeling as though they don't count, they're frustrated, or maybe even a little fearful. And sometimes, and Dawn and I had this conversation just a while ago, that because we've been there, particularly those of us who are elders, because we've been there, we kind of forget what it's like to be at the place where we don't have our same guarantees that the local pastors do, and so on. So I know that's not the intent that the conference has, and many of us do feeling. I recognize that with the transition, there was just a lot of stuff going on. One of the things we heard was folks could not get information, and what I know is, and I'm not totally illiterate when it comes to computers. What I know is I get lost in the system trying to find stuff that I can find, and I'm grateful for the conference support that's able to sometimes get my path right in the context of even getting some of the reports done. But in my 50 years of ministry, we have never been not in a transition of some kind. And so this continues. I understand the confusion, the things that get lost and things that have to be redone. So I want to say again, thank you for your time and your willingness to be with us to answer the questions that may have simple answers, or maybe they're incredibly complex answers. At least please know that your presence here makes a difference to our network members. Thanks for those who have submitted questions. There are many, and we'll try to cover as many as we can. We're going to ask the presenters to, you have the questions, and so you can start, and we're going to make sure that we kind of balance this off as quickly, not as quickly, but as fairly as we can in the context of getting them met. Most of the questions are work around the process for local pastors. Joe, we're going to let you off the hook easy, or quickly, I should say. We're going to give you second, but we're going to ask the DSs to start the process. So I'm assuming that do we have a DS who's designated presenter?
So Denny, we'll have Derek pray us in, if that's okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks. We give thanks, Denny, for your leadership and vision for this group. It's really a gift, and tonight's a testimony to that. But we'll turn to Derek just to pray us in.
Amen. Thank you. Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we come to you today seeking your wisdom, guidance, and support for the ministries in which we have been called. Even though this may be a virtual space, your Holy Spirit is present with us wherever we may be. Help us to engage in meaningful conversation that will inspire us to grow closer and nurture the bonds of community that strengthen the United Methodist connection. Amen.
Amen. So, who's the designated spokesman for the cabinet?
I think they're going to share, but maybe we could invite Dean Evelyn Kent Clark to begin and share a word, if that's okay.
Very good.
I'm happy to do that. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Dawn and Derek, and thank you so much, Denny. I find that when Denny and I meet, whether it's for a one-on-one or something else, I do a lot of listening. And Denny does a lot of the talking because he has so much wisdom and experience to share. So I'm always glad to have that conversation. So what we're going to do tonight, as we have gathered, each district superintendent will take one question. Of course, one of us shares on a particular question. If another DS wants to chime in, I invite them to do that. And we're going to take them in the order in which they have been given to us. And I do have the first question. So I started out by talking about the fact that the cabinet values and supports the calling and the ministry of local pastors. And I wanted to open with that because I heard you, Denny, and I heard it before I heard it, that sometimes people feel that they are not valued and they are not supported. But I want you to know that this cabinet, this bishop supports you and honors the work to which you have been called. So the question that has been asked is, what are the cabinet's overall expectations for local pastors? So in partnership with the laity, local pastors provide leadership to the churches all over the Eastern Pennsylvania Conference. We have a lot of local pastors, and they are doing great, great ministry. Let me share with you some of those overall expectations. Pastors will be people of faith, spirit-filled and dedicated to the work of ministry. That's a priority. We are a church. We are believers of Jesus Christ, and that is important. Local pastors will progress and continue to move forward in the pursuit of their license. And so we have been talking about completing the education, completing the course of study. You probably know that if you are a full-time local pastor, you have 8 years to complete the course of study. If you're a part-time, it's 12. And so we're looking for pastors to move forward on that journey and not kind of get stuck in the pursuit of their license. They'll be able to direct people to where they will find clarity on Wesleyan culture, values, and theology. And this is why the education is so important. They will reinforce the community of faith through the practice of the sacraments, Holy Communion, recognizing the open communion table, and the baptism of infants, as well as officiating for the service of marriage. They will guide the church towards vitality, and we're talking a lot about that now. And so local pastors, as all pastors, will be helping churches to hit those 5 markers that we have been talking about: worship in small groups and community outreach and generous giving and making disciples of Jesus Christ. They will give biblical interpretation that includes the scholarship of scripture, tradition, reason, and experience. They will embrace all people, accepting the sacred worth of all people and embracing all cultures. And they will seek to have and nurture their relational skills, demonstrating effectiveness and character in the execution of their ministerial responsibilities. And so I know there are other things. I try to give an overall picture of what local pastors are expected to do.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to respond to question number 2, which asks, please share the new appointment process that includes the posting of appointments and an invitation for pastors to express interest, and how local pastors can engage that process. Our current appointment process is as follows. When there is an open church, meaning a congregation is expecting a new appointment due to retirement, pastoral requests for moves, the church provides a 100-word description of its ministries, which is already included in your church profile. And that information is then posted on our conference website on Sunday afternoon so that you can see that. Persons that are interested in potentially serving that particular congregation would reach out to the district superintendent by noon on the following Monday, sharing their rationale for consideration and serving that particular congregation. Those names are then brought to the cabinet, and we begin to pray over the process to see if this church and pastor would be a good fit. That, in a nutshell, is the current appointment process.
I'll be answering your third question, which is, do you think that it is possible to ask your local church, SPRC, for school time included in your weekly duties and time? And the short answer to that is yes, it's possible. I would go on and say in certain circumstances, it's not only possible, but very reasonable. There are factors though. If you're quarter time, the church is really paying for kind of the basics, if you will, and there's not a lot of time out of that to come. If you're full time, the time is going to have to come from somewhere. I think the important thing is to be transparent and honest with your SPRC about that. It's helpful if you know when you're going into an appointment that you'll be in school. Work with your district superintendent. We're here to support you and to make these appointments good. We don't want conflict. We don't want fighting. We want this to work for everyone. So talk with your district superintendent. I mean, this is stuff we can address at a take-in and set the expectations from the beginning. If you are already in an appointment and you're finding there are demands where we need to make a little more time for your school I'm just going to throw out, for example, if you have a dismantling racism course, right, that goes on into a Sunday, that's not a vacation Sunday. Just as an example, but talk with your SPRC if you need help negotiating that, in your clergy interviews or talk to your DS, bring it up to your DS. We really are here to support you in that.
Okay, nice to meet you, everyone. And let me give you the answer for the last question. That's how many CEUs are required yearly. Actually, all clergy in full-time appointment are required to earn the average of the 2 continuing education unit. So each calendar year. So full-time, the pastor, the clergy, they need to take the 2 CEU each every year. And the part-time local pastor who have completed their educational requirement are expected to earn the 1 CEU per year. So 10 contact hours with a qualified instructor or resource person equals 1 CEU. But like those who are right now enrolled in the local pastor, the local pastor who enroll in the licensing school or course of study or the advanced course of study or even an MDF student, they are not required to take any like a CEU unit.
Just one slight clarification there, except for the required sexual ethics and those pieces. But you're correct, DS Lee, that the CEUs can count towards, the work that folks are doing in local pastor school all count towards the CEUs. But there are some that they have to do every quadrennium. We're so thankful. And for those of you who haven't perhaps yet met DS Lee, who was installed just this weekend on the North District, and DS Frymoyer, who was installed on the West District. And so we rejoice in all four of the district superintendents being present tonight and taking this time. If you have questions, Denny and Derek are going to monitor this part. You can just raise your hand or you can put them in the chat. We'll just give a minute before our DS team. They may not be able to stay with us all night. So if you have any specific questions for the district superintendents, we welcome them at this time. Derek or
Okay.
Denny?
Can I speak?
Sure, yes, please.
Okay. I have been at this process since 1973. And I'm overwhelmed, truly. 2 schools, 2 churches, and I still have courses to finish. So I'm going to need some coaching to get me through my final 3 or 4 or 5 years left in my life for this. I am 69, and I saw my brother retire, and he was a great influence in my life. So I don't want to present myself before the DCOM or BOOM as totally avoiding the education process. I just need to know where is my closest, and I still have some monies left up in Garrett so that it could pay for studies. But I need real direction because once this pandemic hit, everything went up in air. And I want to continue. I don't want to be perceived as breaking the requirements for licensing.
So I don't know, is that a DS question or is that a Board of Ministry question? I don't see Candy smiling, so I don't know.
Wait, should I be?
Well, what do you want to do with this question? It's kind of personal. So how we want him to handle it? Who should he contact? This is the kind of question we have. Who should he contact?
DS
Oh,
Foster is going
yeah.
to respond.
Pastor Ephraim Koto, he and I have had our pastoral interview. I've had extensive conversation with him in terms of the requirements as well. And he's already indicated his age and the amount of courses to complete the 20 courses. He may not be able to do that. So the conversation with DCOM each year, they have an opportunity to grant you, before you turn 72, an extension. It's not always guaranteed, but we can at least ask for the extension if you have not completed the coursework. So that's the conversation we've had, and that's the 20 courses are what the requirement are. And not sure much more you want to say, Ephraim.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Okay.
Mhm.
DS Foster, thank you for that, because I think it opens the question of what's the takeaway from that for the rest of us, and for the rest of this group. And that is that the conference and the structure is willing to work as best they can with the individual to get them to the goal.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
There
you,
is a
sir.
question. There is a question in the chat. Again, before I ask this question in the chat, we are going to talk extensively at Course of Study. So should we maybe want to hold some more Course of Study questions till the next section after benefits, when we will talk, much more extensively about Course of Study, and it may answer a lot of questions.
Yes, that's fine. Let's do
Okay.
that. Any questions that are not related to the course of study or that are just general? If not, then Joe, let's turn to you and the questions of benefits.
Good evening, friends. I'm going to give you a little crash course on benefits. So the first question was, why is UMP-IP important? And I guess I would say that it's always important to be putting money aside for your retirement. You may have heard me say on other occasions regarding benefits that it's often the case that people in the United States pay too much for their insurance. They buy more insurance than they need. But it's also the case in the United States that a lot of people don't put away enough for their retirement. The UMP-IP plan and the United Methodist Pension Plan in general was meant to be a supplement to your Social Security and monies that you put away. It was not meant to be the be all and end all of benefits. So it's very important that you're putting money aside. Your money is completely vested from day one. And our pension plan is just one big, huge plan. So the pre-82, the MPP, the CRSP-DB that first began in 2007 and then got changed in 2014, and whatever's coming in 2024, it's one big, huge plan. And you never lose any of the benefits that are already put aside for you. So when you go to retire, you're going to have to make decisions about all the plans that you've been enrolled in. So if you've just coming into ministry or you came in 2007 and were enrolled in the CRSP-DB at that time, you would have to make decisions about how you want that paid out. You'll need to make decisions about how you want it paid out in the plan from 2014 on, and you'll have to make those same decisions about whatever you earn in the 2024 forward plans. So again, you never lose anything that you already have earned. It's also, if you look at putting funds away, I always try and get our new people coming into the plan to immediately begin putting money away, because the compound interest, putting a little bit of money away now is going to earn you more than if you wait until 5 or 10 years from retirement and put $100 in as opposed to $1. You want to make sure that you're putting it in from the beginning so that it can continue to earn. And then finally, you want to put money into your UMP-IP because there's a matching amount, free money from the church. If you put in at least 1%, then the church puts an additional 1% in. I'm going to go a little bit out of order so that I can explain the plan a little bit. As far as eligibility for the plan, our plan, the CRSP plan, covers anyone who's 50% or more. And that's for defined benefit, which is a lump sum amount that gets put in at the end of the year for you, and it's not specifically in your account, it's in a pool of funds, and then a formula is used to determine how much you get of that when you retire. And then there's also a defined contribution amount that goes in for anyone who's 50% or more. However, we encourage anyone who's 25% to also enroll in being able to put in money yourself, even if the church does not put money in for you. We always want you to have the opportunity to put that money in. And I have to say that a lot of times people who are in coming to us from another job and they've retired and, we have a pension with that plan, say to me, oh, I want to save the church money and I don't want to be in a pension plan. And it always hurts my heart a little bit because I always want you to be able to get what you need to be able to retire comfortably. So again, that if you are 25%, you do have the opportunity to enroll even if the church is not putting money in for you. As far as health benefits, we enroll anyone who's 3/4 time or more. Because of the hours that are put into each of those percentages, and based on what is felt as full-time in the general public, we passed a resolution several years ago saying that if you were 3/4 time or more, you're eligible for health insurance. Back to pension for just a moment. if you are 100%, you have mandatory pension. So you're not able to waive out of that. If you're 3/4 time or less, you are eligible to waive out of that pension plan. I would also say that you only get CPP, which is our death and disability benefit, if you are 100%. So anything less than that, you do not get that death and disability payment. One of the questions was, how will the new pension plan that's coming out in 2024 or being taken to general conference in 2024, how will that affect you? Of course, the plan is not complete yet. They've had all this time to be refining it, so they're continuing to work on it. The biggest change will be that most of the defined benefit portion will be going away, and it will be almost exclusively defined contribution. So that puts much of the onus on the pastor rather than the conference or the local church in order to fund that pension plan. So you need to be thinking ahead to make sure that you're putting that money aside for your pension. And I will help to educate when the information comes out about that. But for right now, that's pretty much all we have as far as the new Compass plan. One of the questions was how to prepare for retirement. And I would guess the things that I would say is to finish your course of study so that you have that designation of retired local pastor when you retire, which allows you to vote in annual conference, to make sure that you're putting funding away into your UNPIP. And if you have the opportunity to be in one of our health plans, to choose a plan that has an HSA so that you're putting funding away into your HSA as well, which is another mechanism for putting funds aside for retirement. In retirement, your HSA money can be used to pay premiums for health insurance, as well as paying for claims. It can even be used to pay for your Part B of Medicare. I don't know if there was anything else that came up as a question.
I don't see anything in the chat. Derek, do you? No, I do have one question.
Yeah.
So Joe, when do we call you and when do we call Westpath to get information?
Well, if it's about your eligibility or getting enrolled or questions about what is in the plan, that kind of a thing, I would say call me. I would call Westpath if you're experiencing problems after already being enrolled and need to know, is your fund being funded correctly? You need to make a change in your health insurance between open enrollments and you're wondering if you're able to do that. You could certainly call me and I could direct you. I'm always a good first source because I can at least direct you to Westpath if it's something that I can't answer.
So we don't know who to call. We call you. You tell us who to call.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, that's good enough. That's good enough. Because sometimes we don't even know where to start. Now
Yes.
I've been around long enough and you and I know each other enough that you're my first calls. For a lot of things, and I appreciate your availability and your willingness to help out. Okay. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to the major questions that we got. And these either fall to Boom or to our DCOM. So we'll turn to Boom, and between the two of you, DCOM and Boom, you fight it out and who's going to handle what. And Candy, why don't you start?
So we're actually going to invite our Boom chairs, Reverend Mike Remmel and Reverend Tracy Duncan, who are Boom chairs, and then we'll turn to our DCOM chairs to supplement them. And Candy is our North District DCOM chair, who does an outstanding job there. But we want to thank Joe. We want to thank the district superintendent team. You're welcome to stay with us. You're welcome to. We know you may have to leave at a certain point. But let's turn over to Reverend Mike Remmel and Reverend Tracy Duncan as they lead our Boom and share some thoughts with us.
Good evening, everyone. It is good to be with you, and we appreciate the questions that have been asked of us. I can't say that we haven't seen these questions before. This is part of what Boom does. A lot of the questions that are under Boom leadership are also things that, as we go through, I'll let you know. A lot of them are DCOM questions as well, because you have to remember that local pastors relate to their DCOM, and DCOM is a subcommittee of the Board of Ordained Ministry. I'm going to go to my co-chair, Tracy Duncan, and see if she has anything to add before we start going through these questions.
Yes, thank you. And good evening to everyone. As we go through these questions, I'm going to largely be silent because at some point I'm going to lose my voice yet again.
Yes.
But
yes, you are.
I also just want to remind you that as you're searching for information, please don't forget about your book of discipline. I know sometimes that's a little bit hard to wade through and to figure out, but especially if you look in the sections beginning around 315 or so to around 324, there is information there. It is written down. And if you forget what is said here tonight, it will be somewhere there, primarily in those sections. And that will certainly help you as you're trying to make sure that you have all of your, if you excuse the expression, ducks in a row. So I'm going to let my co-chair talk a little more, and I'm going to be silent.
You saved your voice, Tracy.
Yes.
Please. Okay. So the first question, please share any changes in the candidacy process for local pastors. For the candidacy process, there aren't any changes to speak of. For the status of local pastors, part-time or full-time, there is. So the Board of Ordained Ministry used to interview local pastors before they would be granted full-time status. Now that is no longer a thing. The appointment of a local pastor, part-time or full-time, is up to the bishop. The next question is, please explain the difference between licensing school, basic course of study, and advanced course of study. Licensing school, after a local pastor is, and we ask after a local pastor is certified, that licensing school would be the next step on the road to becoming a local pastor, full or part-time. And so you would attend, our conference has a licensing school, as do other conferences, and depending on where an appointment the timing of an appointment, it may be easier for a candidate to go to one of the other conferences for licensing school. But I will say that our licensing school here in the Eastern Pennsylvania Conference takes place in the fall of each year. And the contact person for that would be the Dean of Licensing School, who is Dan Lebo. And DCOMs can assist local candidates looking to be local pastors in being able to get all the information that they need to register into licensing school when that time is when the time is right. And it is important that you do it when the time is right. I mean, we've had folks at the DCOM level who have gone and very eagerly, not to in any way disparage their eagerness for ministry, do licensing school, and they still have steps to take toward certification as a candidate. And you have to understand that that you have to be certified to be appointed and to be licensed, I should say. And the other thing is that that licensing school is only good for 24 months. And so the clock starts to tick once you finish that licensing school. And so if you don't finish your certification in that time frame, you have to retake licensing school. And we don't want candidates to have to go through that and have to redo things that they've already done. So going through the steps and the process as it's presented in the checklist for candidacy is a very important point. To always try and stick with that. And if you have questions, your DCOM is always there to answer questions for you. Okay. Basic COS. Basic COS is the course of study, and that is what is required of all local pastors. And that is where we were talking 2 courses a year for part-time, 4 courses a year for full-time. And basic COS, if you go to the General Board of Global or General Board of Higher Education and Ministry website, you can get a very good look at the courses. It's 20 courses, and they are courses that you take through a seminary. Many of them are online now. And so the pandemic has pushed us in that direction. And that is your basic course of study. That's the 8 and 12 year requirement for all local pastors. Advanced course of study. Okay, this is where we, advanced course of study is for local pastors who are looking to be associate members or who are looking to go beyond that even and go on to a track for ordination through the COS process. And that is, advanced COS is another series of courses that are the basic or the fundamental graduate level courses that you would need to prepare you for an interview with the Board of Ordained Ministry. Any questions on those before I move on? I know it's as clear as mud, but
excuse me, this is Derek. I'd like to go back to that question that came up in the chat because I think it pertains. So this is from Reverend Rick Risley. He says, I'm enrolled in a program at Lancaster Theological Seminary that is advertised as being equivalent to the course of study. I've been seeking confirmation that the classes and the mapping between the LTS classwork and the course of study. So far, my attempts of contact have gone unanswered. Whom should I be talking to?
Mike, can I take a stab at this one?
Go for that one, Andy.
Thank you, Mikey. So I'm not certain about the specifics of the program that you're doing, Rick. And hi, it's nice to hear your question. One of the things that I often have to do as a DCOM chair is take transcripts for candidates that we have at various levels of their education and send them off to the folks at the General Board of Higher Education and Ministry and allow them to determine which courses suffice for our course of study courses, what matches, what doesn't, and they have an incredibly quick turnaround. I usually hear back from them within 24 to 48 hours when I contact them as a DCOM chair. So what I would recommend is that the first thing to do, I don't think you're North District, so I'm going to point you to one of my colleagues, is to contact the DCOM chair. If you can get information from, you said Lancaster Theological Seminary, did I hear that right? with the list of the courses that they have to compare and contrast to what is on the GBHEM website, or to send it directly to the GBHEM themselves to kind of issue that final ruling. They can be the really definitive voice in that. And I know it also might sound, we United Methodists really love our acronyms. We're like the federal government or the military in that. We really love that. And I know that sometimes you can get lost in all of that soup. So what I do want to say is, for most of these questions, there are really actually only two websites, two acronyms that you need to know. One is epaumc.org. We're gonna talk about that a lot tonight, I'm sure. The other is Google. Google is really your best friend in all of these things, because if you can't remember the right combination of letters for our general boards, I get it, it happens. There's the GBOD and the GBHEM and the GBGM, and there's a lot of GBs. So what I recommend, and I did this earlier today just to test it out, and I think Dawn's going to help me out with this, is you go to Google and you type in United Methodist Course of Study. My friend Dawn's going to do this right now, isn't she good? We practiced this earlier. The first thing that comes up, licensing and course of study from the GBHEM, the General Board of Higher Education and Ministry. I'm going to ask Dawn to click on that. And as you see here, it talks about the path of ministry, makes you accept some cookies, and has sections as you scroll down about licensing school, about course of study, about advanced course of study, so you can look at all of those. And since we're talking a lot about course of study, Dawn, I'm going to ask you to click on where it says view courses under course of study. We're going to just empower all of you to do this. So there we go. So this shows you the 20 courses, as Dawn scrolls down, the 20 courses that are required in the course of study program, that one that has to be completed in 8 to 12 years, depending on your part-time or full-time status. So this gives you the list of courses, and this is what the GBHEM folks will compare and contrast to whatever curriculum you're looking at. And if you want to look at different places where you can do that, on that great big red line that goes across, it says course of study, and you can, like, if you want to see, like, where can I do this? Where is local? Are there things online? You can scroll down to where it says regional and extension schools, and it'll show you all of the places where licensing schools are available, including the best one of all, the Eastern Pennsylvania Annual Conference, as well as the GBHEM's own course that's entirely online. They say you can't do the entire course of study online, but you can do some of it. So, licensing schools, Don, I want you to go back up and so back up to course of study, regional and extension schools, a little bit farther down. There we go. And then this shows you where the different course of studies are in the different jurisdictions. Ours is typically Wesley, but it doesn't have to be that. I've seen credits from other seminaries and institutions approved by the GBHEM. We just have to send them transcripts or lists of proposed curriculum if it's not classes that you've already taken, and then they can determine that. Your DCOM chair is the person who makes those exchanges with the GBHEM, but this will give you the information of what programs are currently available. So Google is your friend, because when you Google United Methodist Course of Study, it'll take you to that great place where you can find all of that information on these different course of study pieces.
Thank you, Candy. All right. Okay. What are the current COS expectations? I think we've gone over that. I'll say it one more time. It is 2 courses a year for part-time, 4 courses a year for full-time. And then how can a local pastor move forward to ordination through COS? All right. So the next one, this question and the next question, there's going to be a lot of overlap in here. Okay. Let me explain it, or at least try to explain it as best I can.
just so the presenters know, the participants did not get these questions, only the presenters, so,
Okay,
okay?
all right. So moving toward ordination through the course of study. You would become a certified candidate, become a local pastor, you would be licensed. And the big hurdle is you can't pursue ordination through the course of study until age 40. Now you can take the course of study and the advanced course of study, but you can't be considered until a couple other pieces take place. One is you have to be age 40 or over. Another one, you have to have served for at least 4 years full time. And the other one is you have to have a undergraduate degree or its equivalent. And you have to have the course of study and the advanced course of study. With those under your belt and those timing pieces in place, you can become an associate member of the annual conference. An associate member of the annual conference, and I'm just going to read it right here. Let me get to my spot. They are in the itinerant ministry of the church and are available on a continuing basis for appointment by the bishop. They offer themselves without reserve to be appointed and to serve as their superiors in office shall direct. They are amenable to the annual conference in the performance of their pastoral, in the performance of their ministry, and shall be granted the same security of appointment as a provisional member or members in full connection. Associate members have the right to vote in the annual conference on all matters except constitutional amendments, all matters of ordination, character, conference relations of clergy. Associate members may serve on any board or commission or committee in the annual conference. They are not eligible for election as delegates to general or jurisdictional conference. Associate members shall be subject to the provisions governing sabbatical leave, leave of absence, location, retirement, minimum salary, and pension. So that's an associate member, and you are looking at course of study, advanced course of study alone being, you're looking at 12 to 15 years of study in that. And then there is that 40, you have to be age 40 or older, and the other requirements that are in there. If all that is met, as I said, and you are elected by a 3/4 vote of your DCOM, interviewed by the Board of Ordained Ministry, receive a 3/4 vote of the board and a 3/4 vote of the clergy session, you can be elected as a associate member in the annual conference, and you would have the same status as a provisional member or a commissioned elder or deacon, and would be able to do the residency in ministry, and in 2 years be interviewed again for ordination. Go ahead, Tracy.
I was just going to add, because that's a lot to hear in one place.
It is.
If you look in sections 321 and 322 in your discipline, that it's spelled out there, and you can kind of read through that and pick up on what Mike has shared. So just know that what you're hearing, it's coming from the Book of Discipline. We're giving you just what you need. So
Yeah.
take a look in there. It's a good book. It's your secondary. Sometimes it's referred to as a secondary Bible. What we live by.
I also wanted to refer you all, if I can interrupt one more time. One of the things that I only recently discovered is that there are full text searchable versions of the 2016 Book of Discipline available online on Cokesbury's website. And again, you know how I found it? I went to Google. I'm telling you, it's almost the only thing you need. I went to Google and I typed in United Methodist Book of Discipline free online, and it took me there, and it's searchable, which makes it so much easier. Let's all be honest, the index of the Book of Discipline is not the easiest labyrinth to find one's way through, but a searchable version online is what I've been waiting for my whole life. Well, not my whole life. So you can find all of this stuff on associate members, all of the things on the educational requirements, all of that. Again, by going to Google first, letting that take you to Cokesbury, letting that take you to the discipline, and finding the sections that you need.
Cokesbury's, you go to their website, there is a drop-down menu. It takes you to the Book of Discipline and the Book of Resolution straight out, very simple in their search lines. I do it all the time.
I also wondered, Mike, sorry, I'm going to interrupt again. Sorry, I just can't. Mikey was ordained with me, he knows. I wondered if it might be useful, because one of the things that I think I was hearing as Denny was talking was that there are so many different places where information is held, and sometimes it's confusing and you can feel lost, which again is why I'm saying all you need is Google and epaumc.org. If you can just remember those, you're going to be good to go. But I wondered if it might be useful to actually kind of walk people through and show them how to find the boom stuff on epaumc.org and how to find in particular these checklists, if that would be helpful to the group. I thought it might be
wonderfully helpful.
Dawn, you want to Vanna White this again? Isn't she great? Just a gift Dawn Taylor Storm is to the annual conference. So look at this beautiful website that we have, the Eastern Pennsylvania Conference website. And if you go up to the top, I encourage you to click on ministries. Everything there is good, but click on ministries. And Dawn is looking for ordained and licensed ministry because she's feeling a sense of call. And on the right-hand side, about halfway down, she found a section for ordained and licensed ministry through Boom. Just going to click on that. And that's going to give her all sorts of information that she might need. The places that I think are going to be most valuable to you for like general questions on the candidacy process, you click on the one that says candidacy process, and that'll give you some good information about the role of local pastors, the role of deacons, the role of elders, all of those good pieces. So that's going to be really helpful, and they even have like the jump down section so you don't have to read the whole thing. But if you're specifically looking for information about how to become ordained through course of study, luckily all that information has actually already been compiled for you. We just want you to be able to find it. So near the top of that page that Dawn is currently on, she scrolls back up to the top. There's a section, it says candidacy checklist for district committee. If we need to rename it something else, we can, let us know. But on the right-hand side, it says candidacy checklist for district committee. And this might look familiar to some of you who have gone through the candidacy process. When you first start out in the process, we tell you really just focus on those first 4 or 5 pages because that's what's certified candidacy, that's what's licensed local pastor. But if you keep scrolling even past that, you can see information about the existing process of becoming a full-time local pastor. And even below that, Dawn's going to keep going. She's good. It's a lot of information to find, but all in this, here it is, to become a provisional member through course of study, a little bit higher up, become a provisional member through course of study. And so that's the the timeline, the checklist that gives you, here's what you need to do if that's something that you're interested in. And as Mike said, you have to be a minimum of 40 years of age for this to apply to you. But if you want to do the provisional member, the provisional elder route through course of study, this is what you follow. And then that eventually can lead to ordination as well.
Okay. Thank you, Candy. All right.
Thank you, Dawn.
Yes.
There's a question in the chat regarding the checklist.
Yes.
Is there a projected timeline to update the checklist? It says IE UM care changes.
So there will be, absolutely. And Boom just got back into its regular sessions this month. And so we are aware of changes that needs to take place on the checklist, and we will be updating those, as well as some updates that need to be taking place on the website, as some positions have changed, and we have some new folks taking on new roles. So one of the things that can be very frustrating, and I've been there, and I've walked with a number of candidates at the DCOM level, at the Boom level through this, is that the process for candidacy is fluid. Things change. And we try to keep the checklist as up to date as possible. And what's specifically being referenced here with the UM care changes is that all candidates are required to be in the denominational database. It used to be called UM Cares. It is, Candy, what is the name? It's it's very, very new.
I think it's Passages.
Passages, that's it. I keep getting it mixed up with Pathways, which is totally different. So Passages is up and running, but we're running into a number of issues with it. One of the things that frustrates me as a Boom chair or as a DCOM chair is when things do get rolled out, and it's like, can't we beta test things? I mean, but we are having problems with Passages right now. One of the problems that we're having is making sure that the people who need access to it have access to it. And one of the hiccups with not necessarily having access right now is that in order for a new candidate to get a candidacy guidebook, it's a $40 registration fee to the database, and then you get a candidacy guidebook. So we are working through that with the denomination to try and work all that out and have that up and running as soon as possible, and have new training out as to how Passages works. For the time being, and if you don't see my face anymore, that's why this is. I have told DCOM chairs to until we have everything worked out, to get a if they have a new candidate, get a book, a candidacy guidebook to their candidate however they can. Right now, I'm not kidding when I'm saying that Passages is having some problems, and we're working on it as fast as we can to get things up and running. But right now, where that is on your checklist, your DCOM should be saying, we'll come back to that for you, but not holding up your candidacy because of it.
So Mike, you're saying that, that we're in transition?
Yes,
Just
you
just wanted-
got it.
Just wanted to check my own perception.
You got it.
Are you concluded? Is there somebody else speaking and?
Well,
for
we
decon?
were trying,
Or-
we were trying to save, I still got lots of questions here.
Well, we are pushing our covenant time. So let's move on. We can, if folks want to stay, we can come back and if you're willing to stay.
I'm willing to stay.
And do the rest of them. But let's move on to the decom and who's leading on that?
We have a number of decom chairs here tonight. So why don't we turn to John Ingram on the South District, and then we can invite the other decom chairs to share. And Mike and John, the one big question that I do want to make sure we get to is the financial piece. There are a number of questions around how to get financial information for school. So if you can address that with decom, that would be great. If you want to turn that back to Mike to respond, but I don't want to lose that one question.
Sure. Okay, let me begin with at least the first question I see. How does the DCUM relate to Boom? And I think we relate to Boom, as Mike said, we're actually, the DCUMs are subcommittees of Boom in effect. And really, we relate to Boom specifically now as it relates to persons who want to be commissioned, whether it's a deacon or elder. We relate to Boom in terms of relaying expectations and standards for candidates for the district committees, any changes that there may be, for instance, passages. We really are that next step beyond the local church, where candidates come to discern their call and for us to help them in that process. Some of them go beyond that district committee. CLMs and licensed local pastors do not, but the two groups I mentioned do. Persons who may, as Mike mentioned, who may be seeking associate membership would. So I really see it as a collaborative effort to help persons take the steps they need from local church to district level and then up to the Boom level. Per the financial piece, I'm going to refer to Mike on that, and only because we've had the person who's cared for that for so long has gone on to glory. So I think I'll pass that on to Mike.
Yep. There are educational grants available on the Board of Ordained Ministry, and there are grants for undergrad, seminary, and also for COS courses. Okay. And we need to do a better job of getting those on the website. And so that is one of the things that we are working on right now, is getting applications on the website. For the educational grants for undergrad and seminary, many times you can talk to your decom. Candy, am I right in that decom chairs and decoms have those applications?
I can Google for them.
They are.
That has not been part of my practice, but I can get on it. I am learning new things in this job every day.
Okay. And then for COS, there is a local pastor grant as well that helps you through COS. That application should be up by the next semester, and you will have 9 months to apply for aid. So you would be able to apply for this semester of COS. Even if you apply in May, you will be able to apply for this semester of COS and the spring semester. We want to have that up on the website as soon as possible, so that local pastors also have some aid out there, and they are in the forms of grants that you receive.
We appreciate that, Mike, because I know that, making sure people
Yep.
can financially attend is so important.
Always,
And,
always.
please, if you go through the whole process and you still need financial support, I would say please reach out to your district superintendent.
Yep.
We really want to make sure that you can attend the schooling, right? It's part of the requirement. We want to make the accessibility financially.
Yes.
That's part of equity and justice. So please do that. I want to invite Tammy Scalise is with us, one of our brand new DCOM chairs, also serving the South District, to say a word of hello. And Tammy, feel free to take a question if you want, or just say a word of hello.
Hello. So I appreciate the opportunity. I'm in the process, like many of you, of learning DCOM. This is my first year on DCOM. And so I'm really gonna I'm learning and listening right along with everybody else as we do this process. Thank you.
Appreciate that. And I'm trying to scroll quickly. DCOM chair. I know we have Candy as our North District DCOM chair. Say again. Oh, Don Keller is here. Yes, I saw Don. I'm sorry, I have a couple screens going. Don Keller, can you come on, and you're welcome to answer a question or say a word of hello. I did see Don. Is he still on with us? He may have had to step out. Okay.
We have Tim Smith too.
Tim Smith from the West District. Welcome, Tim. Do you want to share a word of hello? And you might want to take a question. You're welcome to.
Yeah, I wanted to share that the DCOM, that we're here to help the candidates. I know it's sometimes intimidating coming into a group of folks, but we're really trying to be helpful and try to help people through the process. The other thing I wanted to say was about course of study. I put on the chat the link for different courses. We have a candidate, a part-time local pastor on the West District, who works full-time, part-time pastor. She has teenage children, and she was able to take course of studies from the Pacific Annual Conference from California. Because of the time change, that was the best time for her. So there's plenty of options and plenty of different times to be able to take the course of study. For her, that worked. The classes started at 9:30 at night, and she could do it that way.
Wow, that is amazing commitment, Tim, and we appreciate. Those are good. Those are the tidbits, like the weekend courses, the evenings, and it's a lot. And we're aware of, the commitment, the sacrifices, the family sacrifices that are part of this as folks move through this. I want to invite Candy Labar back. Candy, and feel free to take any of those questions that are left from Boom or DCOM, because we know you have a lot of wisdom to share tonight.
Thank you. And I actually meant to say earlier, I apologize if there's a lot of background noise as I'm speaking. Tuesday night in the Lavar family is night at the dojo, so you might hear lots of screaming, but everyone's safe. It's culturally appropriate for, all the bouncing around and such. So everyone's safe if you're hearing lots of wild noise. Just a couple of quick notes on how DCOM relates to Boom. As some of my colleagues were saying, it's, we're sort of a satellite arm of Boom. And in addition to reporting things to Boom, like who we recommended for a new license, or, each year as you come for your annual interview, who we're recommending for continuation of license. One of the really important things that we report and tend to be the liaison for is if you're falling behind on course of study, if there's major life events, things like a major health issue, or personal losses, or some significant issue that has kept you from progressing in course of study at the pace that's set by the discipline and the pace that you'd like to be keeping. Being really open and upfront with the DCOM is really important about that, because in the end, we're the ones who can report to Boom. When we go over that list each year and see, you know, who hasn't been making progress, the DCOMs are the ones who can say in the appropriate confidences of, you know, that we've, as a DCOM, we've reviewed these folks and have, you know, good, significant, reasonable explanations for why there hasn't been progress. So that with that kind of information, we can extend all the grace that's needed to support you in that process. So I'd really recommend that, to have those good conversations with your DCOMs, with registrars and chairs. The other question that was under DCOM leadership was if we would be able to provide links or email links for licensing schools so we can have them in one email. I'll do you one better. Again, if you go back to the Google and find the GBHEM website, that course of study website. GBHEM has done a beautiful job putting together their resources. So when you click on the licensing school on that main page where we saw licensing school course of study, advanced course of study, if you just click on that licensing school one, you're going to find the full list, including contact information for all of the licensing schools all across the country, including at least one licensing school I know of that's entirely in Spanish, if that's a need for you or someone in your community. So all of that is already out there for you.
Dawn, does that wrap us up pretty well?
We just want one last presenter that we have tonight, and I know he'll be quick, but one of the things we think a lot about is how do we provide space apart for local pastors to just be separate from all this stuff, right? Where you can talk, where you can be real, where you can share authentically. So I invited Reverend Mark Bideman, who's here tonight, who has led for a number of years the local pastor retreat. And I can give a testimony to that. I was invited down a couple of years ago and we sat around the fire for hours. It was such a beautiful time where a lot of sharing beyond just the stuff of our day to day, but deep sharing, family sharing, like relationship building. So Mark, I don't know if you want to share a word about what's possible, and I'll stop talking. I'm going to turn it to Mark.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm excited to be talking about the local pastors retreat. That's what we call it, but it's actually a retreat that's open to associate members, local pastors, student pastors, and even certified lay ministers. And every year we try to have this. It does meet the 10 contact hours for one CEU, which comes in pretty handy for local pastors who are, working full time, most of them, and trying to get all this stuff done that they have to do. We try to get the very, very best of the presenters that we possibly can. It usually starts on a Sunday evening about 6 p.m. And we go right into an opening worship service, and then that's usually finished by 9 o'clock. Then we go right into Monday. Monday's our full day. We have devotions, of course. Then we have breakfast. Then we come back. We have session 1. Then we have a reflection time, which is free time, just to be, just to turn your phone off and something that most local pastors never get to do. Maybe take a nap, maybe break into that good book that they like, whatever it is. And then, of course, we go to lunch, we come back, we have session 2. Again, we have reflection time for a couple hours, dinner at 5. And then we usually have a healing service, and that usually lasts about 2 hours. And then Tuesday is our final day. That starts at 7:30 to 8 with devotions, breakfast, reflection time from 9 to 10. We have a breakout time, which is very important. And that's where the local pastors can talk about things that they've learned, books they've read, things that makes their life easier. And I've learned a lot from my fellow local pastors in that time. Then we go to lunch, and then we have closing worship. And usually the bishop shows up somewhere in the midst of all this and gives us a little bit of time. We've had it at Camp Pacomath. We've also had it at Black Rock. Maybe to give you a little idea of the caliber of people we've had Dawn Taylor Storm there with us. She's been able to see that personally and enjoy our time with her. We've had Reverend Dr. Gary George, to give you an idea of the depth of which the presenter has given us. Gary was real good in that the topic of his time with us was remaining whole in a broken world. And he broke it down to conflict resolution, how to deal with conflict resolution, dealing with situations and personalities. Boy, was that a big one. Play acting to help us identify situations, boundaries, triangular situations, getting pulled into situations. And any pastor with any amount of time knows what that's about. How to avoid feeling responsible for things we can't control and shouldn't feel responsible for. So that's just the beginning of some of the things that we've learned. And then again, you know, we get a little bit of free time, a little bit of downtime. It does meet that 1 seat EU, which is really good for us. In the past, we've worked very closely with the PennDel Conference. Of course, as you know, we're no longer yoked with the PennDel Conference, but I don't see why it wouldn't work. Boom has supported us financially and CEU wise. So it really is a good time. We haven't done it since COVID. And I want to know from my local pastor friends who would be interested in coming. I don't have any dollars and cents wise yet, what it's going to cost. A lot of times we will take that to our, to our church administrative board and say, hey, this isn't vacation time. This is continuing ed. Can you help me out with it? Again, Boom does give us a little bit of support there, and I appreciate that. So that's pretty much it. If you want to get a hold of me, and let me know what you would like to do, if you'd like to be part of this. We usually do it after Easter. I just found out today that the Walk to Emmaus is the weekend after Easter, so we might step away from that particular weekend, but we'd love to have you. Again, it's usually a Sunday night into a Monday and finishing up on Tuesday, usually out of there by 1 o'clock. To contact me is very easy. Email is UMC, as in United Methodist, Pastor Mark at earthlink.net. And you can send me an email and I'll see if I can get back to you and let you know what's going on. I'm working on this, and I know that there's quite a few people that really enjoy this. So we'd love to have you come out. I think, like Dawn said, the most valuable time is just sitting down and being able to talk to other local pastors and find out that, you're not the only person going through these things. And we've really found some good answers to some situations. So if you have any questions, feel free to call me. Feel free to send me an email. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I want to thank everybody who's presented tonight. We really appreciate the time you've given, the sensitivity that you've shared, and for those of you who are here as learners and as members of the group and not a presenter, I want to thank you for your questions, for your participation. I want to remind you that we meet in 2 months in November. Bishop Scholl will be joining us at that time. And so we'll be in touch with you relative to what that will look like and what are concerns that you might have that you'd like us to raise with the bishop. But we meet every other month, and we try to provide opportunity for all of you, all of us, to really create in this community time and space to raise the questions that we need to do some learning. We've done a few learning experiences and gotten speakers from around the country to be with us, and even some local folks who've shared some of their experiences. So it's been a good group, and we want to thank you all for participating and being with us tonight. And for those of you who have presented, again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for what you do for the conference. Now receive a blessing. May the blessings of God Almighty, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit be upon you and abide with you in this day, in this night, and every day that follows. In the name of Christ, amen.